Welcome, everybody. Um, my name is Bartek Bielavski. I welcome you to the session, Become PowerShell Ninja today. The purpose of the session is I basically would like to show you a little bit of my skill slash tool set that I have at my disposal every day. And the reason for the session is very simple. We've had a few joiners in our team, and a few colleagues started to look behind my back to what I'm doing in PowerShell. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I like to do that. And then I started to explain to them how to do those things. And I thought, okay, maybe there are people here in this conference as well that would like to also get some kind of, okay, how can I improve my PowerShell skills so that next time I open the PowerShell, I'm more productive with it. Maybe I do something cool that others can be envious about. That when they see it on my screen, it's like, oh my God, it's so cool. And that's basically the meat of the session. Before we dive into those things, let's first spend 2 minutes talking about the sponsors. I would like to thank them very much. Maybe it's not going to be 2 minutes, but what they can see it here, but not the. Okay. Okay, there you go. Okay. So sponsors. I would like to thank them a lot because obviously that wouldn't happen. And it's not the first year that most of those sponsors support this conference. And we definitely are grateful for that. And thanks to all those people that actually find the budgets for that to support the community like this. Because I think, the sole fact that we can be here, enjoy ourselves, we can just relax and just eat good food and have a nice venue and all those things would not possible without their help. This is also mandatory slides, so I'm going to go through that one very quick before I move to my our presentation tool of choice. So my name is Bartek Bielavski. I'm an outdoor blogger, speaker. I'm currently working in Optiver in Netherlands. It's been 10 years, so it's not like I change jobs very often. And I used to be PowerShell MVP. I'm not anymore, which actually PowerShell MVP as a title doesn't exist anymore. So I try to keep it like this. I don't really spell out the things that I'm not MVP at all. But that's about that when it comes to PowerShell. Let's move, as I mentioned, to the rest of the presentation in my presentation tool of choice, which is PowerShell IC, which nobody except for me and a few other people are using. So few words before we move on with the actual technical details. Any graphics you will see on the screen, all of that will be a product of my eldest daughter. She's drawing the pictures for me. That's why I don't have to worry about, first of all, how terrible AI generates the pictures. And second of all, I don't have to worry about any licensing because I'm actually paying for it. Not a lot, but still, at least I don't have to worry about any kind of license claims after the fact. So with that out of the way, let's move with the first. Let's talk about agenda first. So my idea was, okay, I can explain things first to you, but that's going to be boring. And especially after this after lunch deep, I expect that half of the room will fall asleep before I'm finished with that. So I decided to do that other way around. So I'm first going to show you a little bit how those things work. And after that, I will move on with explaining how I got there, right? And I also wanted to tell you and show you how much of that is depending on the tooling, because I'm going to show you first how Ninja operates when his pens are down and he cannot take out his sword, and then the shurikens are all dent and don't work anymore. Then we're going to go through those things that actually make those things happen. So I will spend some time talking about profiles because, well, basically that's the primary tool where you will set up your tool set, where you make sure that your pens are up and the sword works properly. Then I'm going to explain or mention a few useful modules that I use daily and few trick shots that's going to be close to the end. And obviously, I will try to reserve some time for Q&A. But if you feel like you have a question, please raise your hand. I will try to repeat your question. If I forget about it, just make sure that I don't forget about it. Thank you very much in advance for that. My memory is good, but very short. So with that out of the way, let's say a few words about me. Okay, you've seen that one, but I wanted to show you the picture. So it's updated. I asked my daughter, okay, I grew a beard. Some of you know me long enough to know that this is not my normal look. But yes, I asked her, okay, make sure that the picture is updated. So there you go. Yeah, for important things from here is like if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at BLFB. And the same applies to GitHub. So if you want to find my work there, it's also going to be the same handle. You can see also my email. So if you want to reach out to me over email, feel free. I'm not really the person that you cannot really reach out to. If I will be able to help you, I will try to help you at least. So feel free to use those communication platforms to reach out to me. So Ninja in action. So let's go to the demo. So first, as I mentioned, I will start with PowerShell console that's running with no profile. And I went really rogue here because I actually also removed the PS read line, which is normally when you start PowerShell these days, at least, it will be automatically imported for you. So I made sure that all the tools, all the things that are normally at your disposal are off. So nothing works. What I mean by that? So I have some habits. So let's say I want to go to a certain folder. I will just type the path and I would expect it to work. But obviously in the clear PowerShell, that's not your result, right? If you just type the folder name, it just doesn't do anything because it cannot do anything about it. So then you have to remember, okay, it's just CD that you have to do, or change location or system location or whatever. It's your preferred way to browse the folders. Now, this is a repo, but there's nothing showing me there's any Git running on this system, right? Nothing in the prompt, nothing in the console changed. I have no idea where I am. Is it even the repo? So let's just run the command that I would normally run to check it. And that one also doesn't work. It's like, okay, right, this is an alias for my Git. And it's normally don't expect those to work as a commands. So yeah, let's just run git status and see what's up. So now I can see the status. Now it's actually this Git repo. Thank you very much. Thank God I didn't rent the wrong folder. Okay, but then let's just maybe check out something like different branch, right? Or different state from my repo. Git checkout. Still nothing, right? So I would expect that to top complete the branches, what have you, but nothing happens here. What else? I also like to make the changes to behavior of PowerShell in a way that when I type something and I press space, something happens magically, and then some commands appear on the screen. Let's try it here and just suffer how it doesn't work. So I use very often PowerShell DSC at work. So I use this, and yeah, it's just like it stays like that. It should behave differently, in my opinion. It doesn't, so I'm kind of lost, right? Next thing, it's like, okay, I want to find module. So one of the modules I like a lot is PowerShellholic PX modules, and one of them is Format PX, which I like a lot. So let's just find the module in the gallery. Let's hope the internet works. It does. Awesome. And now I expect something like that to work. I just get this variable, I pipe it to install module, and it doesn't work. Oh, actually, let's make sure the scope is correct so it actually analyzes other parameters. Still doesn't work because input object is null. It's like, what do you mean? The underscore doesn't exist. Why would that be the case? So let's go scroll up and just start to install the module again. So install module, scope current user, so it doesn't complain about me not being administrator. And Format PX is one of those modules that tries to override the commands that you normally have in a session. And PowerShell gets module, unlike many other things in PowerShell, it doesn't try to behave like a friend. It tries to behave like your mother. So instead of accepting reality that want to override some commands, it will say you, wait, you just gonna override commands. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? And then you have to add this allow clubber, right? So if you have a command, if you have modules that use the same commands, let's say you want to install VMware Power CLI and you have get cluster coming from failover clustering, it will already complain about it and not allow you to install the module unless you specify that. So that's not the behavior I would expect because I I remember that normally I just tell PowerShell get to just accept the reality, my situation, and I don't want to be guided by the hand by any PowerShell module. I just want to be treated as a friend rather than a son. So all of those things happening like this because I'm not in my usual environment. I'm kind of taken out of the water, like the fish out of the water, just trying to catch breath. Doesn't really work. Great. So let's just switch to this guy. So here I have my all my Power profile installed. So all the elements of my profile are here, which means that all those behaviors that I showed you before suddenly will start to work. So if I just specify the path, it just goes there. And immediately, it's not like I have to guess anymore where I am, right? Because you can see the branch, you can see the some information about the status, how many files were modified, how many files were added, how many files were deleted. All those things you can see immediately on the screen in your prompt. And that's very useful because then you just don't have to waste the time to run status. But okay, now I can write what I did before, and it does actually work. And you will think, okay, does he has a command hi actually in his profile? What's the problem with this guy? No. So if I try to get this command, you can see that the term hi doesn't exist. This command is not there yet. I can run it. Magic. Next, I mentioned tab completion, right? So I can tab complete things here, which I wouldn't be able to complete before. So if I do git checkout and I do tab, you can see there are some things that are being presented to me. Better yet, instead of just tabbing and just walking through the session, through the list, I can just press a key combination. It will bring up a nice menu. So now I can just select it from the drop-down list, which is also very useful. I mean, in this case, I just don't have too many branches, so it's not that spectacular. But if you have 20 branches on your repo and you want to switch between them, obviously having the list like this is very useful, especially if you can filter it. Like you can just say ER and it's just you get merge hat, right? So it's always filtering those results pretty easily, and you can just select what you want, and then you just get it in your prompt back. Next to that, it's like help. The tab completion is very useful in PowerShell, but you have to remember that there are some things that are built in that just work. For example, if I just do get help and I say name and I type to complete, I can get some completion here, right? But if I say get help, and then I say, okay, I want to have parameter, and then I try to tap that one, nothing happens. And there are ways to do it yourself. But instead of doing this hard work, what you can do, there's community module by author of the basically tab expansion plus, who used to be Microsofty, then he left and he came back. Then there was a lot of history around that person, which we have public module tab expansion plus, which, well, as the name would suggest, does exactly that. So if I import that module, first of all, you may notice that my prompt suddenly changed. So now I have this plus somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure if it's very visible, but you can probably tell there is a difference. So you can use your prompt to display any information you need. For example, let's say I start PowerShell as elevated. It will be useful to see that right away. And here you can see that there's this exclamation mark on the red background that immediately tells me, okay, you are running in the elevated session. Please be, careful because you can damage something here, right? Let's go back here. So now that I have tab expansion plus, let's go back to our attempt to get help. Yeah. Minus name get help and parameter. As you can see now, the parameters for that is offered as a tab expansion. And if you run get argument completer, you can see there's a huge list of those things. And it's not just tab completion for PowerShell commands, but here you can also do something like netsh and then just tab complete, let's say proxy. Win e proxy, no? Oh yeah, probably it's like set proxy. So as you can see, it's contextual even for the command line utilities. So if you don't remember the syntax, and God forbid if there's any person in this room that remembers an SSH commands by heart, okay, that's what I expected. Anybody still using SSH for anything? Every now and then? Yeah, okay. I was worried that you maybe just don't use it. And obviously that makes sense that you wouldn't know the syntax for it. But overall, all of those things are coming from the stop expansion plus module, which is available in Gallery. You can download, install it on the box, and just start using it. And the thing that I mentioned before, right? We had to try. We tried to find module, not you. Find module. Okay, let's just give it a try like this. So it was, I think it was not format px, right? Format px. So now it will do pretty much the same. That doesn't change. That's exactly the same thing we did just a moment ago. The difference is that now if I try to do this and pipe it to install module, let's go current user. First of all, this $_ now has value, and it's actually going to be a result of your last run command. Next to that, because of the feature known as PS default parameter values, it will not care about me trying to overwrite any commands that exist in my system, which is not something I expect any module to do. So this is pretty much the rundown through the how you can actually do things. It's not all of that, because there's some other interesting things that you can do as a PowerShell user that gives you some nice kick when you do that. So I very often hear that pipeline is slow, and I agree. If you write a huge script that runs through systems and you have to analyze data there, putting pipeline in your scripts is probably not the best idea ever. However, when you are working in the shell, pipeline is perfect, and this is what PowerShell shines the most, in my opinion. So when you are in a console and you want to do things with it, having a pipeline like the PowerShell pipeline is definitely a plus. So we can do something like ls, just get some files. So let's maybe just let's select C recycle bin gallery. So I have some files in there, and then I can do. I want this one. Yeah, sure, why not? Anyways, so then I can just do ACL and save it in some other variable. I want maybe let's just do something different. Let's just take it. Oh yeah, this one. So I have some few modules that I want to get. Then I pipe it to ls, which will get the module information and figure out, okay, what's the path to the given module. Then I get the ACL on it. And what I'm selecting here is the name of the module, the full name of the PowerShell module file, and the owner of the file that we have on disk. And if I do something like this, well, that didn't work very well when it comes to columns. Maybe I should switch them around, because then it will be visible. And we actually have owner as well. So this guy is going to be module dot. No, it's going to be file dot full name. So now it's other around, so we can actually see something. And as you can see, that I'm just taking things from different pipeline with the pipeline variable switch, parameter. Next to that, I'm just piping things that don't make sense on the surface, right? I'm just getting modules, then I'm piping it to ls, and suddenly magic happens when I get results. And then I pipe it to this ACL, which on surface makes sense because you just get ACL from the given file. And then you're selecting those things together and just gets nice, right? If you want to produce CSV with those information, I mean, that's specifically because that doesn't make much value, but you can kind of see where it's going, right? Next to that, PowerShell has the pipeline itself in PowerShell has even more feature when it comes to operating on the things that came from the previous one. So if I do something like this, let me run it first and then explain what's going on. So first of all, I have this nice folder with my gallery from vacation, let's say, right? But I made a mistake and I name the files without the 0 prefix. So now 8 comes before 79 or something like that, right? I don't want that. I want to change them so that actually the 0 comes, sorry, 8 comes after 7, and 80 comes after 79, though they are ordered properly. So what I can do instead of just working through this, I can just do something like that, rename those files. So let's just remove ODF. And now if I look at this folder again, you can see that they are perfectly lined up now, right? So, and this is only because of the support for pipeline that PowerShell has, which definitely supersedes anything else that I've seen in a while. And trust me, I was working with Bash and not any other shells. They usually don't have this kind of support that you can just pipe things and then just operate on them. And as you can see, I'm just taking the thing from the previous command and just shoving it into another parameter. There are some things that need to happen with the altering of those commands that I use that actually make it happen. But if somebody made this hard work to make sure that it's supported, we'll get these benefits in the pipeline PowerShell. Okay, so this is pretty much when it comes to me being in action. Next up is I want to show you profile. Why I want to show you profile? Because that's where I will gonna put most of those things that actually make this happen. So you use profile. How many of you actually use profile? You have your own profile. Excellent. How many of you maybe don't have profile configured? What's your excuse or reason for not doing that? Okay, we can discuss that later in the venue maybe. But keep in mind, having a profile that actually resembles what you actually want to have as a tooling when you run when you work with PowerShell, it's basically the difference you see in between me with my pens down and me with like the sword in my hand, right? So the thing that was initially so that I was just completely lost because some things I expected to work didn't, and some things that I expected to work in a certain way were not working the way I expect them to. So all those things were because I didn't have my profile set up. So why do you need it? Is the answer to this question is pretty straightforward, right? So the way I see it is like you need it because if you're going to prepare yourself for like working daily with the PowerShell, having profile means that whenever you start it, it will always have the same tooling at your disposal. Will have the same prompt that you expect to have. You will have the top expansions that you expect as well. All those things will be there already for you. Okay, so why do you need it? We have that covered. The next one is, what types of profile do you have? So how many of you are aware that there's more than one profile? Awesome. You have to be conscious with, because in PowerShell you have this default variable, you have automatic variable prop, right? Okay, the top, this guy is not helping us. I don't want to show you guys already that profile, yes. So this is variable that looks like on the surface, it looks like it's just a string. And this is profile specific for current user and the current host. Host being the program that you run to work with PowerShell. So other hosts that you can have is PowerShell console within VS Code will be different host. PowerShell IAC will be different host. And obviously the console one that we are using today is also different host. To cater for that, PowerShell team decided, okay, we need to help people to discover those. So this is a string variable, but it has some properties that help you see more than that. Because we have at least 4 profiles handy. And some of them, the choice between them will depend on like what you want to achieve. So if there's something specific to a given host that you are working with, and you are the only user on this machine, and you don't plan to use any other user, you are fine with just modifying whatever is on the dollar profile, right? But there might be some tools that you want to have at your disposal, regardless if you are running in PowerShell IC or you're running in PowerShell console. And then those will go to the dollar profile current user all hosts. On the other hand, you can have situation where you have your working environment where you just for your Git stuff, for you like changing the files on disk, you will use your regular account. But whenever you want to like Entropy session to your management server, or you want to do something with the main controller, you have to start a process with different username to make it convenient for yourself. But you still want to have certain things, like you still want to have the nice prompt. You still want to have certain things set up the way you expect them to. So then those things would probably go to the all users current host. Or if it's like, again, even broader spectrum, so you want to use those tools anywhere, regardless of the host that's being used, you're probably going to put it in all users on host. So you have to keep in mind that this distinction between those profiles can be useful, and you should use for your own advantage, so you don't have to copy the code, to this dollar profile for each host separately yourself manually, because that's going to make it harder to make sure that you keep it in line, that they agree on what you are using. Yeah. So this is about the types of profile and making it modular. So another thing that you might consider, especially after a while. So what I find myself doing is that I will start creating some functions, some scripts that I use in my daily routine, right? So let's say I have a function that will just modify version number in some configuration file. And it's like, okay, I have it defined in my profile, but that's useful on this machine. But if I want to have it on another machine, I need to like copy whole profile everywhere. Or if I want to have it like different PowerShell version, right? I have PowerShell 5 that have different set of profiles than PowerShell 7. If I want to keep that intact, maybe I want to have that somewhere else. And the obvious choice for that would be a module. You can create a module that you will just import inside of those profiles. But the module will contain all the logic, all those functions that you want to have at your disposal. Another option is that basically what Profile does is just dot sourcing a script. So instead of letting it dot source itself, you can dot source something within it, and then just have this like, modular thing going for yourself. With just dot sourcing a script, it will have just those tools that you want to have at your disposal at any point in time. And I mentioned that this sharing between PowerShell 5 and 7, it can be tricky, and I indeed have this here. I have PowerShell 7. I installed a completely different approach to having the power line. I think it's on my push. But what I like about this one here, I just decided, okay, I want to have something fun. So how many of you use aliases in the console? And this is perfectly fine, right? Everybody's telling us don't use aliases. What they forgot to add to the end of the sentence in your scripts and functions. So in your scripts and functions, I can agree wholeheartedly you should not use aliases. In the console, God, why not? I mean, they're there for you to be used. But when you run those aliases and somebody else is looking at your code later, they may not understand what happened. So what if it would just, I just type alias, press space, and suddenly I have a full command instead. That would be useful, right? And it will be even better if it would just be don't care about context. So it's not some kind of regular expression checking. It's just using ASD. Why not? And that way, when I look at my history later or I share it with somebody else, they can look at my code and understand what happened. And I'm still down to typing very small characters, and all those things just happen for me because, well, my profile is already designed that way. But as I mentioned, this is here. But if I go back to PowerShell 5, nothing happens, right? So this is like an example where I put it in one profile, but not the other, and I would probably want to have it everywhere. And this is it's probably not the code that would work in the module context, so probably I would need to dot source that inside of the profile. Okay, I see that we are short on time. So I'm gonna go through useful modules now. Okay, let's close those guys. So useful modules. Definitely what I would recommend is just find a module that will work for you when it comes to the prompt. Because in my opinion, the prompt is where everything starts. It's always on your screen. You can always see it. And it always provides some feedback if you choose to do that. If you obviously, by default, it will just show you the current location, which is useful at times, but maybe not the only thing you want to see. Same as I showed with the Git, right? I didn't see any Git information from the folder where I was sitting in the Git itself. And for that, I would recommend something like Powerline, which is awesome. It's created by Jekyll. Next, complete what you need is the Tab Expansion++. That's a perfect module to have. It's in gallery, same as a Powerline, and you can download it from there, install it, and start using it. And the last but certainly not least is the History PX. So the module that I show you that it does have this $__. It's very nice, but what I can do here as well, you can see that I can have several commands that I ran it before, and all of them have some output. So I can even take output from not the last command, but the command that was on before. And if it's not too long, because it will truncate it at a certain point, obviously you don't want to make your PowerShell bloat because you have like output from ls minus recursive from C drive. That will not be a great idea. So it has some potential to configure your limitations in those things. But if you have very simple command and you want to just browse your history and see the information about those things, what happened there, you can see it here as plain and simple, right? You can just grab history minus ID 18 and what's that? This one is let's see output. No, output. So yeah, this is my when I listed all the profiles, right? So now I can do something with this previous command that I ran before, and I can just don't have to, because I'm not sure how many of you found yourself in a situation that you run a command, it took like 10 minutes, and then you realize you didn't save the output variable. Yeah, right? You all love those moments when you realize, okay, wait, now I have to run it again and actually do something with the results. So yes, this will help. If the output will be like pages and pages of text, probably it wouldn't help because it would truncate it at some point. But it's not always the case, right? Sometimes you run it for 10 minutes and you get 3 lines of thing, and you can obviously just select those lines. But doesn't mean that you got all the object, right? Because we are PowerShell users, we know exactly that what we see on the screen is not exactly what that PowerShell command return. It can be so much more. So yeah, that's definitely useful to have. So modules. So fake commands. I did show you briefly this situation where I was running a command that didn't exist, right? Probably wondering what happened there. I would. So let's see profile. I think it's going to be in this one. Yeah. So in PowerShell, you have execution context, invoke command, command not found action. And what this thing can do is take whatever person run, and if it wasn't found as a command, it can do something for the person. So here you can see I'm checking, okay, do I have any Git aliases? And if I see any alias, I will try to run it. And also, if I test path and I see that, okay, this path exists, I will just say push location. I was just going to rush push location on your behalf when you do this things like what I showed, that you can just say see your recycle bin, and then it just changes the folder, right? So because of this functionality in PowerShell, you can just swap commands on the fly. So somebody was running hi, and well, it's not a Git repository, but you get the picture, right? If it would be a Git repository, so if I go back to actual Git repository, it's repo, and now I say, okay, show me diff, please, and I can say up in dot, so git add, obviously, and then I say awesome just demo, which is git commit, obviously. Truth be told, if somebody would look at my history and look at what I just ran, good luck figure out what happened and reproducing your timestamps, right? So you should not share those things with your colleagues, maybe. But if you want to have just like this wow effect, then it definitely is fun thing to do. So that's pretty much what happens here. And so this is like those fake commands, right? Commands that don't really exist, but the things that actually do something useful. Useful variables. So if I go back here, oops. So useful variables, what do we have here? So I did briefly use this variable. So if you look at this one, I just ran the command and $dash is what the first token in the previous command. It's useful, for example, when I just run a script and it just blew up in my face. So now I want to debug it. So I can just start debug, set PS breakpoint on the script. Set PS breakpoint. And just assign, this one is different, but let's say if I would run the script, I can just do $_dash. Another one that I'm using very often is $$. So for example, in PowerShell, you have this functionality that you can do a lot of crazy stuff. For example, you can export data. So now I'm just getting some information from my processes. I'm selecting some of the properties on them, and I'm returning CSV for it. Can you tell me in how many characters I can get to open that in Excel? Any guesses? Who gives me 10? 2? Really? Okay. I was gonna have to ask you to what the 2 characters would be. I have 5. Pay attention. EE. That's an alias. $, which is last token in my previous command. Boom. If I have Excel installed, invoke item will just start whatever process is associated with the given type of file. $$ will link to the last token, so I can just get the Excel to open the file that I just generated, and it works for anything. So if I, for example, now get the gallery, I remember I had this nice gallery somewhere. So let's see, so I can do so gallery. Select on this first one. I don't want to open too many of them. And now if I EE that, you get the picture. So that's my picture from location, obviously not. So this is useful variable. So this $$ is another useful variable. Another one that I did show you here was this PS default parameter values. So if you look at that, I specified certain values for install module and skip publisher track in our Clobber, because I don't like to be bothered about those things when I install modules. And now whenever I run those, remember, initially it was just complaining that I wanted to override commands that I already had. In the second instance, it didn't do that mainly because the PS default parameter values that told it not to bother me about those things. So that's another useful variable. And there are many other variables that you can discover when you are studying working PowerShell, $$ probably being one of them for sure. Any questions? I didn't really leave you much time, but maybe if there are no questions, I can also show you a few things that I did other than that I already showed you. There's slides before. So the question is, what's the module responsible for those slides that are just sliding in those things? Oh, so this one was. So I think the question is about the prompt itself, how it's built. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. So the question is about the module that was responsible for the GUI pop-up when I was tab completion. Thank you. So that one was GUI tab completion, I believe. Let me just double check that, because I can always do this, and then I don't have to pretend like I remember. So this GUI completion is the module that I was using for that. And what I had to do for that to work is just in my profile again, because that's where we put those things. In my profile, I have. Sorry. Let's just use code. So I added here somewhere. Yeah, this one. So I made sure that if I press Control Spacebar, it will use just this invoke GUI completion. And that one is smart enough to figure out what the context of the given line is, so that I don't have to pass anything to it. It will be smart enough to help me with that, but I just need to make sure that there's some key combination that will just trigger that command, right? So that's it. Any other questions? Command line mount. Oh yeah, sure. By the way, all the code that I put in here, I would try to put that in the GitHub so you can actually download it. But just to show you very briefly, like this is the handler that I was using for a non-found command. So basically what it does is just looks for the command that I try to run in aliases that I have. So git aliases here is a variable that's built before that, which is just git config minus global minus L. And then I just find all the aliases that I have. And if any command matches the alias, it will be just replaced with it. And as you can see, I'm using regular expression. So that's why I can even do something like, instead of saying awesome, I can just do AW minus N. And that still will minus N. And it's still gonna work, right? So I can just shorten it because it will just figure it out. And I'm lazy, so less typing is better. Any other questions? Okay, so just, sorry? Yeah. Yeah. So this one is actually, yeah, I was hoping somebody would notice that. So I mentioned that Powerline is something you can configure, right? So I actually wanted to show you as well. So actually that's a good bridge to the what I wanted to show you for that one. Because what I like about the Powerline is that you can define your own completion texts in it. And one of them here is somewhere at the beginning. So I have get remaining session time. I just created my own function for that, which basically what it does is just checks the time and make sure that how much time I have left. And depending on how much time I have left still, it will change the color. So if it's like now that we are running out of time, it's red. Previously it was yellow. And before that, somewhere long time ago, it was green, right? So all those things change dynamically based on the actual situation in the demo. This is not what I normally have. Normally I have what time is it and how much the last command took. Sometimes in the past I had like something that would show me how much characters I used for the given command when I was playing with the golf. So it can do whatever you want, and that's the really nice thing about this module, that you can really expand on it. All I have to do is just make sure that this configuration for this module, which I'll probably just put something like details how you get this configuration going. It's basically telling the Powerline to how to structure those things. And it can be also like in some other modules can inject to it. So as you can see, there's nothing here that is related to Git, but the module that I have for Git is actually smart enough to figure out, oh, you are running Powerline, so I'll just inject this part of the prompt for you, and you don't have to worry about that yourself. Yeah, so that was what I wanted to show you guys as well, this configuration, because I think this is very useful, because that means that whenever you actually running the prompt and you want to expand on it, you want to make it more like suited for you, not for everybody in the community, you can definitely do that. I like also this other tool that I show you in the PowerShell 7. I think this is on my Porsche, something like that. So let's just go to profile here. So yeah, I'm using this. I was really feeling bad about the line that they proposed to install their module. Because whenever I see invoke expression, I get nervous. And when I checked, actually, if you do this, they are going 2 steps down the goal. Because what we do here, as you can see, they also, when you elevate that one, is invoke expression. So it's invoke expression by to invoke expression by. So it's what could possibly go wrong. Code injection never existed in the wild, especially in Power, right? So, but the result is pretty neat, right? You can agree that it's like if I do TPS minus AD 13, so it's gonna break. It has this broken heart. I love it because it looks so cool. But also the Git information is pretty nice. So you can see here before it was showing me like if it was checked in or checked out or whatever. All those information is there, pretty plain and simple. We're running out of time, which is good, because it means that we use the time properly. Any other questions? You have like 30 seconds. If you have more, okay, go ahead. GitHub, my GitHub handle is BLFB. It's same as, maybe I can go to the slides because there it's my Twitter handle, and my GitHub handle is the same. Okay, that's all. I'm gonna stick for the rest of the week as well. as most of you probably will. So if you have more questions, feel free to hit me up during the pause. Thank you for your attending, and have a great conference.